Well, I am Ambassador Rachel Guy-Mera, a delegate to the United States of America on the Future Focus Global Ambassadors Cohort, a sophomore at Charter School of Educational Excellence High School, the CEO of Sheets by PYT, and a passionate advocate for youth development and empowerment. It is an honor to be a host on this season of Future Focus Fridays. And now I turn the time over to my co-host for the season, Mr. Dale Hernandez. Dale?
Thank you, Ambassador. Good evening to our viewing audience. I bring greetings to you from the management and staff at Future Focus Empowerment Institute International. I am Dale Hernandez, the Interim Chief Executive Officer at Future Focus Empowerment Institute International. We are a global social enterprise serving approximately 500 young men and women in over 55 countries across sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, North America, Latin America, and the Caribbean. We specialize in empowerment strategies, piloting and designing psychoeducational and life skill training programs as we focus on impacting the socioeconomic outcomes of communities, nations, and the entire world one youth at a time. Ambassador.
Thank you. Now let's talk about the show and the brainchild of a very special group attached to the organization. Known as Future Focus Global Ambassadors Cohort, a group of 500 young global impact ambassadors attached to this program serve as country delegates for the Future Focus Empowerment Institute International's most highly visible programs. As a delegate, each ambassador becomes the public face of the organization and is responsible for the initiation, planning, and execution of youth conferences, summits, and programs. Through this Global Ambassadors Program, members not only gain public exposure and access to the United Nations and events, but are also afforded the ability to cultivate effective relationships with other country delegates and the organization's global network of social capital. Dale?
Thank you, Ambassador. At this time, we extend our gratitude to those who have made this day possible through their commitment and support for the vision of the organization and their interest in global youth impact and development. So we'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
We wish to inform our viewing audience that you could post all questions in the Zoom chat box and in the comment section for those of you who are tuning in on our Facebook Live or YouTube channel. Dale?
Thank you again, Ambassador. And now to introduce our four guests on today's show. First, we have Dr. Varma Diyal Singh. Dr. Varma Diyal Singh is a psychiatrist based at Community Mental Health and Wellness Center. He is the Secretary of the Association of Psychiatrists of Trinidad and Tobago, a past president of the Medical Board of Trinidad and Tobago, and a current member of the Psychiatric Hospital Tribunal. He's also a board member of the Caribbean Accreditation Authority for Education in Medicine and other health professions. Dr. Diyal Singh has served as an independent senator in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago since 2018 and was awarded the National Hummingbird Medal Gold in 2018 for his loyal and dedicated service to Trinidad and Tobago in the field of medicine. He continues to serve on the various committees dealing with mental health and community issues and shares his expertise and insights as a Trinidad Guardian newspaper columnist. Dr. Diyal Singh, welcome to Future Focus Fridays. The floor is yours.
Good. Right. So thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And this is a very important issue you have because the young generation will determine what happens in the future, post-COVID, post-pandemic. So definitely it's an important issue and it's a pleasure to be here. And I hope I can engage and get some, and questions answered and, at least educate a little, both of us, both ways. Thank you for having me.
It's an honor for you to be here. Next, we have Ambassador Jasmine Jenkins. Ambassador Jasmine Jenkins is a Vice President of the North American Future Focus Empowerment Institute International Ambassadors Cohort Leadership Council. She currently resides in New Jersey and is focused on initiatives which create a safe space for young adults to freely and comfortably discuss the topic of mental health on both a personal and educational basis. She also has a bachelor's in hospitality management and an associate's in baking and pastry arts. Ambassador Jenkins, welcome back to Future Focus Friday. The floor is now yours.
Thank you once again for having me. As always, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about, especially as a youth myself. I really hope that I'm able to enlighten a few people and maybe also get some questions answered.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Ambassador Priska. Ambassador Priska Onigwara, MPH, CHES, aka Dr. Zoe from Nigeria, is a public health consultant, influencer, and a certified public health education specialist. Priska works with the New York City Department of Health as a public health advisor. She is the CEO and founder of Excellent Health for Africa Initiative, a registered nonprofit organization that works in line with the United Nations SDG 3 to ensure good health and well-being for everyone. She lives in New York City and often refers to herself as your favorite New Yorker. Ambassador Priska understands the importance of good health and well-being and is passionate about ensuring that people live healthy lifestyles. She does this by educating, advocating, and promoting health and well-being, thereby helping individuals change their unhealthy behaviors. In her free time, Priska loves reading, traveling, painting, and spending time with her family and loved ones. So welcome to Ambassador Priska, our favorite New Yorker. Welcome to Future Focus Fridays.
Thank you, everyone, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone. And I hope we can be able to talk about this issue and be able to address people's concerns and questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Ambassador Waiwatu Wairima. She is a human resources director. In addition to this, she is a serial entrepreneur, founder, and managing director of Art of Wellness. It's an organization dedicated to raising awareness of mental health with a holistic approach through various services. With a fierce passion for mental health, she's committed to mental health advocacy as she constantly seeks spaces to engage in conversations that raise awareness of mental health, which is evident in the radio roundtable talks in This Together. Ambassador Mwaiwatu is the delegate to Malawi on the Future Focus Global Ambassadors Cohort and the events coordinator for Pan-African Game Changers Malawi chapter. Above all else, she prides herself on being a mother to her one-year-old son, whom has given her life meaning and is the driving force behind her desire to be the healthiest version of herself in all spheres of life. Ambassador Mwai, the floor is yours.
Evening, everybody. Thank you for having me, and I'm definitely looking forward to this discussion and learning from all of you as well.
Thank you. Ambassador Rachel.
Thank you. Now, before we begin our dialogue, we will take a short commercial break from one of our sponsors. At this time, we will transition into our dialogue, but first we wish to remind our viewing audience that you can post all questions in the Zoom chat box and in the comment section for those of you who are tuning in on our live. Joining us live on Future Focus Fridays are 4 servant leaders and visionaries who are involved in mental health and youth development. According to the United Nations, youth fall between the age bracket of 15 to 24. However, we now have Gen Zs and millennials that covers a wider range segment. So if we were to refer to persons of youth under the age of 30, there are approximately 3.5 billion of us worldwide. So what is happening to this group? Now, going back to the UN again, there is a kaleidoscope of information in relations to youth and education, health, awareness, poverty, and unemployment, just to name a few. I ask you who are tuned in to look into it because it really paints a picture as to what our youth is faced with globally. To extract and contextualize on today's show, we would like to emphasize the importance of engaging, educating, and empowering the youth around mental wellness and prevention, understanding that the traditional pre-COVID-19 approaches for youth mental health are no longer applicable during this COVID-19 era. So I would like to ask my first question to Dr. Valma. How would you define mental health / mental illness?
Good. Mental health is really a state of well-being. An individual has to have that state of well-being where the individual realizes his or her own abilities. So it really has to have an internal self-knowledge, what I'm capable of doing, what I'm able to do. Also, the person now can cope with the normal stresses of life. So it looks like an external factor now where any sort of events that comes on us, be it relationship events, anything, social events hitting us, we can cope with that. We can work productivity. So once we are going to be working out there and able to make a contribution to his or her community. So it has all those factors in it, the internal self-knowledge and able to cope, able to work outside. Another definition may have been refers to cognitive, behavioral, and emotional well-being. So cognitive means the thinking aspect of it. So therefore, let us say a child is born with cerebral palsy. That child has a problem with cognition. An Alzheimer's patient, Alzheimer, cognition is gone there. That mental health will go. Let us say we're looking at behavioral. Somebody has a personality disorder and is very destructive, a conduct disorder, destructive. That behavior wouldn't fit in. And emotional well-being, we look at instances of people emotional dysregulation, getting angry, having things like bipolar, depression, and mood disorder. So that's a nutshell, having these three factors and able to fit in society and be productive.
Thank you. Ambassador Prisca, what do you think mental health / mental illness is?
Okay, I had to myself. So thank you for that question. So mental health issues include any issue that could affect our emotional, that could affect our psychological, that could affect our social well-being. So if it's affecting how we think, if it's affecting how we feel, if it's affecting how we act, if it's affecting how we relate to issues that we normally relate to, right? At work, in school, at home, anywhere at all. Those issues are what we call mental health issues, mental health illnesses, those health issues that affect our emotional, psychological, social well-being. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. How does someone know if they're experiencing mental illness or if they have a mental illness? When should they seek help? Dr. Varma, would you like to answer this question?
Okay. Let us say you have an individual, right? And that individual has a change in his traditional personality. So we look out as persons and say, are they changing their behavior, their patterns? Are they changing their sleep, their performance in school? And from the external look, we look at those individuals to see a change. Now, a parent may know exactly how their child is. And we have to realize a child going under, like teenagers, hormonal influence will make them act up, and they may act out such a way that parents may not like. But that is part of growing up, running for the independence. But you see, if you have a child going into pits of moodiness, irritability, if you have these signs, and a few signs coming in like that, you lose interest, you just have no energy, you're lethargic. Signs like that are warning signs. Signs like a child going to binge drink, suddenly hypersexual, all this could be signs of bipolar. So those are signs we could see. But children themselves undergoing their own, or teenagers, adolescents undergoing their own problems, sometimes they don't see and they don't recognize they have an illness. And this is the challenge. They may not see. Some of them may find that, okay, I have crying moods and some of them may seek help, but the majority of them don't recognize it, that they have an illness. And even if they recognize something is wrong, they are hesitant to come out because of the stigma of mental illness.
Thank you, doctor, for that. Ambassador Mwai, what do you think would be the answer to this question?
Sorry, Rachel, can I just confirm, are you asking the question, when would one seek help?
We're asking, how does someone know if they're experiencing mental illness, and when should they seek help?
Okay, yeah. So I would say if they start to experience feelings, such feelings that basically disrupt their day-to-day life, if they're unable to cope with how they operate in day-to-day activities, if their thoughts, their feelings, and their behaviors are negatively affected in such a way where they lose concentration, for example, if they find that they may be, they have sleepless nights, for example, if they're worrying more than usual, or if they're unable to just handle stress as they usually would, even if they have appetite changes, or if they're more irritable than usual, basically. Some of the things that Dr. Varma said, but now I think it's important to realize that those same symptoms can actually, yes, as you said, be sadness, but if they continue for over 2 weeks, that's when you would kind of pay attention to that, you would definitely pay attention to that and realize that it's not just the standard sadness. That is something that is bordering on depression, and something that you should definitely seek help for. And that's when I would suggest going either straight to a therapist, or in some cases, others would find it best to start with a doctor.
Thank you for that educating answer, Doctor and Ambassador. I hand over back to Devon.
Thank you, Rachel. So for my question now, I think there's a lot of times when people talk, or young people talk about how they feel. And one of the most common for me that I find in young people is anxiety. But I'll ask the question and then pose it first to Ambassador Jasmine Jenkins. What are some of the most common types of mental illness you've seen amongst our youth, and how do they sometimes show up or present themselves?
For me, what I, and from what I've basically seen, is that depression and anxiety disorders are what are the most common ones when we talk of youth. The low moods that one associates with depression, that's something that I've actually seen it firsthand, because I also work with youth on a certain level, but I've also seen that firsthand. So depression, where they'd get low moods, they wouldn't want to participate in activities, they'd withdraw from social settings, etc. That's a common one. And then also anxiety disorders, where their lives are filled with worry, where they're anxious about the smallest of things as well, things that they wouldn't necessarily be anxious about, but they are not presented all the time as they are. They kind of they present themselves in other ways, maybe in risk-taking behavior, also informing dysfunctional relationships as well as toxic relationships, and also low self-esteem and low levels of self-confidence as well as self-harm and self-sabotage. That's one that is, I think that's growing, and more, the concern for that is growing as well, because it's worrying that children are actually intentionally hurting themselves, and not intentionally hurting themselves like through indirect ways, such as substance abuse or whatever, but actually intentionally, causing themselves bodily harm. It will also, I believe, show up through ways such as bullying, where they may be the bullies, yeah. And when it does show itself in those ways, it's hard to get to the bottom of it, because there are many layers that one would need to, for example, if it's bullying, you wouldn't exactly naturally think, oh, that person's experiencing anxiety or they're experiencing depression, but you need to get through the many layers of it to get to the actual cause of those behaviors and the actual reason behind those behaviors. I'll leave it at that for now.
All right, thank you so much, Ambassador. Back to Ambassador Jasmine.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so definitely depression and anxiety are one of the two biggest issues that youth have today. And I would just like to piggyback on that a little bit because along with those, I would say almost traditional ideas of anxiety and depression, I found from some who I've talked to that depression is starting to show itself non-traditionally. So people have told me that they don't feel like sad or they don't think they feel like sad or anything, but they have days where they just can't get out of bed, where they want to get up, they want to go and eat, they want to go and do these things, but they find themselves in bed all day. And then comes that thought process of, oh, wow, I've been in bed all day and I haven't done anything. And then they get upset about that. And then it just keeps cycling and cycling and cycling. And then suddenly they've been in bed for a week. They've barely eaten. They've barely interacted with people. And then it's the same thing on the opposite scale where they do go out. They do talk to friends. They do have fun. And then suddenly it just changes. And they no longer want to do these things, or they no longer have positive thoughts. And now that happy memory that they wanted to create becomes negative. And on the outside, they find that they've been getting that, oh, well, this person is just really lazy, or this person doesn't want to do this thing, or this person just never wants to go out, or like always wants to go out but cancels. But it's more than that. It's like we said previously, there's layers to it. It's not just them being lazy, it's them fighting a battle with not only their mind now, but their body as well. And this is the more common form of depression that I've seen. And they don't recognize it at first as depression, or they don't recognize whenever they go to work and they love what they do, but they're still having these moments of like panic attacks, or they just have moments where they just can't work and they love what they do. And they don't understand that this is an actual issue and not just something that just suddenly happened out of nowhere. It's not just them just they weren't feeling hungry that day, or they just wanted more sleep that day. It's something deeper than that.
Right. Thank you so much, Ambassador. And that would lead me to my other question, because as you said, there's something deeper than that. And most times when we see people, or we see the actions of people with depression or anxiety, we see the surface of it, but there's also a root of it. So I'm going to ask the question to Dr. Dialsingh first. What would you say are some of the root causes of mental health issues in our young people today?
Well, we have to look at, remember, there are different mental health issues, and we went through the fact that depression is the commonest one, which we see, and the signs that sometimes depression could come as hostility and irritability more in younger people too. So we see depression, we see anxiety, eating disorders. Schizophrenia is also coming now, where you find that schizophrenia could show up between the ages of 50 to 25, where these children may start to hear things and see things, lose touch with reality. And we are seeing schizophrenia more. And I just wanted to mention that because you see, with the greater use of marijuana, you find that the marijuana could trigger psychosis in families which have that gene for schizophrenia. So those are some of the things we see in kids. And remember, another thing I would just want to mention before, there's the episodic drinking among adolescents between the ages of 15 and 19 years. And I think they found in 2016, a study was done, and it's about 13.6% worldwide at risk for that. So those are some of the factors we see. But what are the risk factors really? Okay, so I mentioned before, schizophrenia, for instance, bipolar disorder, depression, there's a genetic link. Even alcohol use. If you have alcohol use disorder, there's a genetic link. If you have a father, mother using alcohol, that is one link there. But not everybody who will have the genes, it will manifest. You need certain trigger factors. So you may have two siblings, both in the same environment, and you find that one may actually suffer from depression and the other one may not. And we say, but why is that so? They're the same environment, same parents, same genetic influence, but you see sometimes one child may undergo bullying in school. One child may have a teacher even talking down to them. One child may be abused by an adult, and that now could trigger depression. So there's the factors outside that could really trigger the mental illness. So therefore, we also look at the fact that if a child also has a parent with a mental illness, as I say, genetic, they can get it. If a child has, for instance, been bullied in school, poverty is a factor too. So if you are living in poverty, you have greater chances of having some sort of experience of mental illness, experiencing discrimination, perhaps of race, sexuality, religion. All these things could also cause that. A young person taking the role of a parent, if the parent is out working and that young person has to take that role as a parent, that also could precipitate that problem also, because, you're taking that additional role and you're trying to fit in as a child and a parent at the same time. And any child who has any long-term physical illness, we have some young persons, juvenile diabetes and other medical problems can trigger that. If your parents are getting divorced or separated, that can happen, can lead to it too. So any sort of changes, any sort of adjustment that child has to make, leaving one home and moving to another area, never fitting into a school. So a child whose parents is moving from one area to another area all the time, that child wouldn't form that bonds with their peers, and all that could precipitate illness as well as migrant. Any migrant population moves to another country, they are higher risk, that child, of getting in because they can't fit in.
Most definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Dialsing. And Ambassador Priska, you could speak on this as well. Thanks.
Some of the factors that might increase one's youth's risk of getting or developing mental illness. And just as Dr. Varma said, family history of mental issue is actually one of the causes of one developing mental illness. And also stressful life situations, for example, death of a loved one, could actually trigger mental health issues, depression, anxiety, panic, different things. And okay, so this particular issue, this particular risk is close to me because I've experienced this firsthand, and without even knowing it, life situations such as the death of a loved one could trigger, like, it could just be one thing and then the next day it's another thing. So I lost my mom recently, and I had to travel. I had to leave school for a while, travel home for the funeral, stay with my younger ones, and stay with them for a little while. I was okay, and then until I got back to the US, and I was living alone and all of those things, depression setting, anxiety setting, different things, it just different levels. And it's not something I could just tell. I'm just going to take the whole time if I try to explain, everything that I went through, but it was a lot. So stressful situations such as financial problems also could actually, increase one's risk of having mental issues. And an ongoing medical condition, as a young child, and maybe they're told oh, they have cancer, they have a particular health issue that will make them maybe undergo chemotherapy, radiation, all of those things. At some point, they're like, I'm tired of this. Can I, sometimes in the clinic, we have a young person, and before, this guy is very, very, very lively. When he comes in, he wants to say hi to every provider in the clinic. Hey, so this person is not here. Hey, this person is not here today. Hi. But with time, he started withdrawing, and he just wanted when he even say, hi, how are you? And he's like, I'm okay. He doesn't even want to talk more now. He's just withdrawn. He doesn't want to talk to us. And one of the days, when I was talking to him, he's like, is there need for this? My mom is stressed out. My dad is stressed out. Everyone has to bring me here, this, that, this, and all of these things. Oh, do you know, because of comorbidities, I have this again, I have that. on top of what I have. I don't want to live no more, and all of those things. So certain health conditions, chronic medical conditions can actually affect one's mental issues. When we're talking about youth, talk about peer pressure. Peer pressure is real. Like someone who is not used to doing something or who is not comfortable doing something, but have a group of friends in class or maybe at work or something, and they want him or her to do something, or they're like, oh, I bet you're not strong enough. I bet you're this and all that. You're not cool enough if you're not doing this with us and all. He is not comfortable with doing such things. He is not raised that way, but because he has to lean into or be cool like his friends, they also want to be part of things that their friends go out to hang out with their friends. They tend to go into some of those habits and all, and these things can also lead to mental health issues. And also social media. We're not going to downplay the role that social media plays in youth's mental health. Some of the things we'll see online, some of the things, there are times when I just go offline, like go Facebook's, Instagram, Twitter, everything, whatever thing you call social media, go all of them, because sometimes it's too much, right? So media, also the things we'll see online, the things we hear, we read, so many people, it's too much, and that also too could pose a risk for youth to develop mental illness.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And I now turn the time over to Ambassador Rachel.
Thank you. Now, before I get into my question, I have a question here from the chat. And doctor, it says, can somebody get over mental illness without medication?
Yes, definitely so. You see, let us say we see somebody who's depressed. Remember, there's mild, moderate, and severe depression. So most of the time, if we see a mild or moderate depressed individual, we can just do talk therapy, speak with them, let them do cognitive behavior therapy, let them learn to some of these people need a listening ear. And sometimes they don't need to come to a psychologist or psychiatrist, They could just get somebody there, they can talk, vent, and figure them things out. So we are not really pill poppers now, but if I see somebody with suicidality, they want to kill themselves, at that level, I would want to now put a medication in them. So certain disorders, you can, anxiety, if you have phobias, you could do exposure therapy, somebody have a phobia of going in an elevator, you could do just exposure without medication. So yes, definitely you can do that.
Thank you. So to our ambassadors, what impact does technology have on the mental health of our youth? I'd like to pose this question first to Ambassador Mwai.
Okay. I believe the role of technology, you have two sides basically. There's the negative side to the role of technology when it comes to mental health, because first and foremost, let's just say technology now is part of our fabric. Whether we like it or not, we can't do without it. So either way, it's here. It's here to stay. And the fact that it's here, it's now about how we actually utilize it. A lot of the youth, I believe now, I'm not actually sure if they actually see the difference between their online lives and their offline lives anymore, because it's so integrated now. Their friends are on social media. Well, when we speak of their friends, as in on the phone, they speak to their friends on WhatsApp, on what is it, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of that. That's how they socialize now. So in a way, they have at their disposal the ability to connect and to socialize, which is a good thing, and also to learn from others and to still remain connected. Also, I do believe that it provides them another way of self-expression. Do you get what I mean? So if they wanted to explore things that they ordinarily wouldn't be able to in like the physical social setting, they can do so on the internet and on social media with technology, for example, and they're exposed to so much more and they have more opportunities to do that. But at the same time, they're also exposed to so much. And I think like what Priska said, literally you're getting bombarded with all sorts of images, all sorts of videos, all sorts of, it's a lot for a person. Even just as myself, I've had to limit what I expose myself to when I'm using this technology, because naturally we're human. There will be times where I may compare myself with other people, and I may not realize it at the time, but this is the thing, it's like a highway, and it's like a highway of thoughts, and all of that is going into my head, and I'm literally, my mind is just open to all of that. I needed to control myself. I needed to control what I was letting into my mind, because what we feed our minds, just we need to take control of that. And the fact that technology doesn't really, it can be used in a healthy way. So the important thing is to establish a balance, I believe, and figure out how to use it. Also, I believe that there are a number of areas, for example, with the entertainment media, for example, the social entertainment media. I'll give the example of a series called 13 Reasons Why. I'm not sure if people have heard of it, but the 13 Reasons Why, I believe it was a series based on suicide, you know. And what I actually read after, I actually did watch a few episodes, but and I found it a bit odd, but I was still interested. But what I actually read afterwards was that it actually created something called a contagion effect. And in a way, it even glamorized suicide. And when you look at things like that, that's really, really dangerous. And I know a lot of mental health professionals were up in arms about the series as a whole, because of how suicide was being presented. And contagion, when I speak of contagion effect, I'll talk of how the way in which suicide was presented, alongside with how suicide is presented just in everyday media and culture, etc. The way it's reported, the way images are used, etc. The frequency of suicide reporting as well. So all of that together can actually lead to copycat suicides in real life, you know. And I feel like that's a very, very scary thing. And technology is there as a tool for that to happen. So that's how I feel like it can be negative and have a negative impact. I just wanted to give that example, but obviously there's the positive, there's a positive element as well to how it influences youth mental health. I'll stop there for now.
Thank you. I like how you said we have to control what we feed our minds, and also it's important to balance, have a balance between online and offline lines, our life. So I want to ask this question also to Ambassador Jenkins.
Just to be clear, it's the question of how social media has impacted you. Okay. So I would say yes, there's definitely both a positive and a negative side. In another way, we have all these like apps and places to talk to people and gather people to understand and validate each other. Whereas just being, especially nowadays in a world where people don't want to go outside because pandemic. And now, even though we're venturing back out, there's still going to be a lot of people that are afraid to go out and mingle, and they're going to still want social. Humans are social beings. So it continues to open up the world that way and gives us places to vent or just talk to someone because we can. Because something that I've seen on social media a lot these days is validation, actually, because someone just posts like, I was feeling like this before, and then someone else was like, I didn't know that even had a name, and I've been feeling it for like years. And then another person posts and another person posts, and now there's a group of these people helping each other because now they're starting to understand that thing that they felt for so long, and they're helping each other validate it and get them through it. And of course, on the negative side, we have that overexposure to media, and we have media that isn't necessarily positive. But I would say that comes with anything, because anything in moderation, from the things that I've been taught and from the things that I've both learned and made mistakes with, anything in moderation is good for you. So just be careful with what you see and don't be afraid. A lot of people are afraid to adjust their media to suit their mental health, but don't be afraid to do that. If you find that a lot of stuff that you're seeing doesn't help your mental state, feel free to adjust it, because mental health is health. And just like the human body, you have to work to keep it healthy. You can't just continue to absorb all these things, because your mental state is going to take a hit for it. So continue to work on it. Continue to adjust as you need to in certain places. Continue to fix where you need to fix and take your time.
Thank
That's
you.
all I have to say.
I like That's it. I like how you said to adjust social media. It could even be like blocking or unfollowing somebody if you feel
Yes.
uncomfortable with the way they make you feel, or unfollowing certain people because what they post is not helping your mental state at the moment, or just logging out or, deleting for some time just to make sure that you're in the correct headspace. So thank you for sharing. So on to our next question. Do you think modern society increases the likelihood of youth developing mental health problems? Dr. Valma.
Modern society, well, the thing is, before COVID, we knew that the youths were in trouble, because if you looked at the figures before COVID, the World Health Organization showed figures that between the ages of 15 to 29, suicide was the second highest cause of death, right? So when we saw those figures, mental health persons worldwide were telling the governments, we have to do something. Why these kids are killing themselves? So we realized this was coming, the tsunami of depression and the fact that so many suicides. So something was going wrong, but we looked at successive generations coming now were killing themselves at earlier ages. And this is a challenge now. Why? Why are these children killing themselves? And at one stage, we thought it was sometimes too much social media too, in the sense that we were thinking, hey, they're not learning to read emotions face to face. But then when we looked at the generation before they had all this, it was still, a trend we were seeing. So therefore, our challenge really now is to see how could we help the kids now? Because really speaking, if we had that trend, COVID is going to make it worse. Because COVID now has brought on more fears for the children, fears, death for the parents, death for themselves, from their friends, uncertainty about their future. So children now don't know what to study. Should I study? What is the sense? Am I going to get jobs? So the modern society now has to know, post-COVID, has to try to figure how are we going to integrate these children. And not only integrate those children who have the fears, because we have described mental health as a pandemic within a pandemic. When long after the pandemic is finished, we will have to deal with the effects that it has on youth growing up. So therefore, we have, technology, we're talking about technology, but technology could be used in such a way, a tool to help the kids now. Because even though TikTok had some bad games they had, we have children now doing TikTok exercises who could get more biceps, who could do better dance steps, who could do music. So you could use technology at this stage to help. So really speaking, we have to look at society adapting to the needs of our individuals. And a very common trend we are seeing though is the educational issues, because some children don't know what to do. They are on hold, they are uncertain. There are people who have dropped out. Some people don't have money to continue educating themselves. So we have to look at the trajectory that in the future, some children will go and work and would not continue. Some young persons will just go into the work environment. Some may decide they will just be dropped out. Some may now we have to retool them. We have to restart them. We have to say, listen, technology, the fast-paced world has to change. Education has to change. You can step back on to the educational process, whatever age. So I think this is how we have to adapt with them.
Thank you, Doctor. I like how you said mental health is a pandemic within a pandemic, and it is. We're gonna have a lot of work to do with the youth and making sure that they're comfortable and making sure that they're like healthy and mental health. So I'd like to pose this question also to Ms. Ambassador Prescott.
Yes. Am I mute?
Yes.
Okay. So the question is how modern times
Yes.
mental health. Um, when I was just when you asked the question, like the first time in my head, I'm thinking modern times. What we're thinking is how they're producing all this awesome technology and all. And one of the things I remembered and I smiled is um you know how there's new games, like I see young people these days, like they could stay a whole day in the house on the game with their headset on and talking to okay, sorry, not imaginary friends, but some people playing the game with them too. I had to go to a friend's house, and she has like an older son, and for 2 days I didn't see that guy. I'm like, is he around? Say, yeah, he's in his room. What is he doing? Like the whole time he's playing game. I'm like, we're in trouble. What happened to those days where you wake up, you have like a free time, and you're like, oh, I have to go to the park to see nature. I have to go to the beach. I have to do this. I have to go hang out to the museum. Now you can't even stay in your house and see the whole thing. In your house, you could stay in your house and see park and see some of the scenery. What happens to going out in the community, going to the park, taking a walk, around the beach, and all of those things. So I feel like, okay, modern times we have like all this awesome technology. Don't get me wrong, I love them. They are good. I love technology, but is there a time where we'll draw lines to how much technology that we do, that we use, that we take in, and also, going out, exercising, and taking in nature, modern nature, the earth, greens, trees, look at all of these things, admire them, do something different, go hang out with friends, like real life, like maybe on the phone you have like, and all of those things. So in my own way, this is the way I feel like modern times is really affecting, because now you don't go out, you always in the house, you can, everything you want, it's here. Now, I mean, I know COVID-19 helped too with it, but you could stay in your house and eat whatever thing you want to eat. You don't even need to go. You could just be in one spot and eat whatever. I feel like I was making a joke with someone. I'm like, if I want to eat something from Paris right now, I think I can make it happen with the way like everything is happening. DoorDash, Uber Eats, all of these eats things, like they could make the world come to your room in 1 minute. So, it's a good thing in one way, and in another way I feel like, okay, it has its negative impacts too to our youth's mental health.
Thank you for that. Somewhere in our comments says they believe that mental health classes should be offered in school, and I agree. It is the number one way to educate our youth. So I'd like to pass back to Zavon.
Thank you again, Ambassador. Another one said good night to all the panelists. And all our traits are developed mainly from our childhood, also genetics and environmental factors, the nature versus nurture principle. He also says to help someone who has mental issues, we first need to understand how the childhood affected them, the individual who is facing the challenges. And that's believable also. I want to ask Dr. Varma, what advice would you give to a parent, or a family member or a friend who has to initiate a conversation with someone they believe has a mental health challenge?
Well, the thing is, different mental illnesses would have different acceptability from the individual. So, for instance, let us say you're depressed, you're not motivated to do anything again, you lose interest in sports or whatever. That person may recognize the depression, but may not have the drive to converse with you. So again, but that is easier to engage somebody like that and say, come, let's go, let's seek help, let's see if we can get somebody to talk to get your problem out. But let's say somebody like schizophrenia who has lost contact with reality. That person has delusions. He has a false belief that some young persons I'm seeing now saying that the Illuminati is after them, and certain fixed positions, it's difficult to get those persons out because that paranoia is there, and don't matter what the parents say, they will now think the parents is also with the enemy. So therefore, certain conditions, you can bring that person into help. Even bipolar, a bipolar patient in the manic phase feel so nice, so energetic, could do a whole set of work for 3 days, and then they go crashing down. So sometimes when we even want to tell that bipolar patient, listen, you're not accomplishing much because you haven't that high, you're doing all the work, all the ideas, but you're not accomplishing putting it in paper. That bipolar patient sometimes will say, no, they like that manic phase and they refuse treatment. So the challenge really for a parent is how could we get those kids to come in for treatment also? So we could start a discussion. So therefore, I have always said, the parents should do it, aunt or an uncle who the child respects should do it. You should also get somebody else in the community the child may have, like a teacher, and it has to be an effort with about 2 or 3 persons coming together, different stakeholders then, to tell that child, look, we really, really think you have that problem. Because even if a child has schizophrenia and we start treatment early, those delusions and hallucinations could go. But when they get treatment and they come out and they stop the treatment, you find we get a challenge. So the challenge really is different things. Even if a child has substance abuse, we use that therapy where all the relatives around that child and say, you have to go for treatment, we are here for you. So it's really engaging a person with their whatever mental illness they present, but some of them could prove difficult. If that child has a delusion, it might be real difficult to get a child. And some children, regrettably, if they want to harm themselves, nothing the parents will engage them. We may now have to take them in, like crisis counseling, take them into an institution to start treatment on these children.
Okay, I understand that. Thank you so much, Dr. Dial Singh. So I know, Ambassador Jasmine, you are an avid advocate for mental health. How do you think we could normalize mental health discussions in our society?
Well, the simplest start to that is to do what we're doing now, to start talking about it and being open about these things are things that happen in daily life. It's not just the celebrity that you see on TV that experiences it, because that's far away. These are people in our homes. These are our families. These are our children. These are people, first and foremost. And when we start these conversations, be open to them, because there's a difference between like having a conversation and being open to a conversation. And because because like we said previously, if you're talking to someone and they don't want to listen, no matter any words that come out, they're not going to listen to it. So be open to discussing these things. And if it starts to sound a little funny, or if it starts to sound like, hey, that sounds familiar, instead of backing away, I would listen further. Because even if there's steps that they don't want to take immediately, listen, get yourself educated. And because these are not just talks where people are like, hey, I just have a problem. Well, no, someone has a problem, and this is what it is. Because another reason why a lot of people don't speak on things is what I said earlier, is they don't know what it is, or they may not realize it, and they don't even know it has a name. But when you put a name to something, that makes it much more serious, and that gives it more focus. So just simply talking about it, getting it out there, like we said earlier, like the person who believes that mental health classes should be offered in schools, it definitely should, because people should know these things. Don't be afraid to talk about them. And even in I would say, especially for like Black people, for us, because we have a lot of home remedies, there's a lot of stuff that people don't want to believe. But home remedies can only go so far until a doctor tells you that this isn't going to help. So have these discussions, be open. Don't think that it won't happen to you. And be aware that these things are happening in the world. They're like, even if it's like the craziest thing that you could think of, like people didn't think that we could ever have a pandemic in our lifetime. It's been 2 years and we're still here. And we've lived through quite a few things that have happened in these last 2 years. if it's a possibility that it may happen, listen to it.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. I love that. And to Ambassador Priska, the same. How would you want to see people, or in general, the young people, or anybody at all, normalize mental health?
I'm just gonna say, and what I'm gonna say is intertwined with the first question you asked, Dr. Varma. How are we going to advise families of, family members, parents, friends of someone who has mental issue? How would you advise them to deal with it, right? And also, how do we talk about like mental issue in the society? And also, just like Jasmine said, it's important to talk about it right now, talk about it so as to break the stigma. And also, while we're talking about it, we don't downplay these things. We don't take it for granted. We don't take it lightly, right? And this connects to friends, families, classmates, and all of those things. Now you see someone who is maybe having like anxiety issues, depression, some of these mood disorders, and all of this. And one thing is, first of all, be sensitive to it. Be sensitive. It's not the time to tell someone, get over yourself. No, it is not the time to tell someone, get over yourself. Once they start getting, that kind of response or reactions, there's this withdrawal. They don't want to talk about it anymore. And this word, I don't know, most of us know about it, like say, oh, be a man. Oh my God. When we talk about like depression, mental health issues, anxiety, and all of those things, right? Men, statistics have shown that more men have these things, but you see, when we get reports and all of those things, more women are reporting. Not because that men do not have mental health issues, but because of this word, be a man. They feel like it is normal to go through some of those things. No, it's not. So we have to normalize talking about this. And we as friends, families on the receiving part, we have to be sensitive. We have to listen carefully without judgment. Listen carefully without judgment. Also, if you have to like repeat the words to them, oh, I hear you say that, oh, you're going through this, am I correct? Just to make sure to make them know that you heard what they said, right? Be sensitive to it. Do not downplay whatever, even no matter how small you think it is. I've had someone it was one of the time I was going through issues, and I talked to my friend, and I know she's playing, but seriously, I'm like, wow. And she was like, girl, go hug Transformer. Oh my God. I'm like, what? But yeah, it's the way she felt. But I feel like if it was someone else who had this, it would have been a different issue. Right. So it's time for us to be sensitive in the society. It's time for us to listen. It's time we stop downplaying when people talk to us about their mental states, about whatever thing that is going on in their lives. That way we encourage people to speak up. We encourage people to talk more about these things in the society and not be stigmatized or feel awkward or weird talking about these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I now pass the time over to Ambassador Rachel.
Thank you. So we have one question, which is actually asked a lot. So it is, do you believe physical health and mental health should be treated in the same way? Ambassador Jasmine, what do you think?
Um, treated, if you're talking about like medically treated, I would say no, because they are two separate issues, yes, but they aren't mutually exclusive. They're actually mutually inclusive because they can happen at the same time. And sometimes what some people find is that when they're in a slump, sometimes just getting up and moving from the bed to the couch helps. So I would say, like, not in like the physical sense of like a doctor's visit, but I would say like the physical sense as, think of it as you're in one body. So your mental state is going to affect your body is going to affect your mental state. And they are two separate issues. And I have always said, and I continue to always say, that the body is made to heal wounds, the outside, your skin, whatever happens when you get cut. It scabs, it goes over. But mental scars are the hardest scars for your body to try and heal. And that's why they last the longest. And a lot of people don't realize that like a lot of stuff shapes from your childhood. So whatever you face as you're growing up, if it's something serious, it's gonna affect you to the day you die, no matter if and when it's a positive change or like a negative change. So be aware that they can be mutually inclusive. Treat them as you treat them, but remember that your mental health is really what's gonna, I would say, in a simple sense, change your mindset, because that's what literally is your mind. That's what you need to take care of. That is where we continue to thrive and grow. Because without that, the body it doesn't do anything. Can you do anything without your brain? Absolutely not. Can you do anything without an arm? Yeah. It's gonna be a little bit difficult, but you can still do it.
Yes.
So treat them. What's the way I can say this so that works? So treat them both as important, but think about your mental health.
Yes.
Be aware of your mental health, just as you're aware that your body moves.
Yes. I like the way you put the analogy that if here is not working, the rest of here is not working. Our brain tells us, oh, move your arm, walk, So if we're not paying attention to what happens to our brain, then we're actually not physically well either. So thank you for sharing that. I'd like to also ask this question to Ambassador Mwai. Do you think that we should treat physical wealth and mental health in the same way?
I I do think we should treat it in the same way. Stay with me here. The reason I say that is because with physical health, you don't necessarily, let's say if someone's going to go to the gym or go for a run or whatever, they don't necessarily have to be in bad shape. They can literally be in good shape and still want to go and work out. So in the same way, that's what I'd say for mental health. Like, you don't have to be broken and you don't have to be in a bad mental state to want to work on your mental health. I believe it should always still be something that is worked on, just to keep it all going at the same time. So that's my answer. And I also believe that if we look at mental health in that way as well, then we'll be making strides towards normalizing it, which is what it should be. We should be able to speak. I mean, I wish you could get to the stage where, you could literally just say, oh yeah, I'm heading to the therapist, and not have to feel any way about it,
Definitely.
So yeah, that's what I think.
Well, thank you for those powerful contributions, Ambassador. So I hand back to Dale.
All right, so I get the last question, and I just want to ask you guys quickly before we end the show, what are some of the simple and effective best practices for great mental health? Because as Ambassador Mwai said, you don't have to be broken, but just practice proper mental health. But what could you do on a daily basis to be in good mental shape, I guess? And I'll ask Dr. Diyal Singh first.
Okay, well, first, you have to look at overall well-being. I would say adequate sleep, 7 to 8 hours sleep, right? So if somebody is not sleeping well, you have to get worried. Are they getting some sort of mental problem, depression? So it's good sleep, good nutrition. So we say eat the rainbow. Like, you have different colors, like, the vegetables, purple cabbage, and different colors of the vegetable. Also fish, good for mental health, the omega. So good sleep, good diet, exercise, very important, because as you exercise, you have the hormones, the enkephalins and the endorphins that you produce, and that helps you. And studies have shown that we put some people on an exercise program and persons on Zoloft, and the ones on exercise did just as good as Zoloft for mild to moderate depression. So exercise is there. Then work hard. So if you whatever, if it's your job, if it's your whatever you have to do, your job or your education, work at it. But then you have to have that balance now where you play hard. Play hard means like your sports or whatever you do. So basically, those are the 5 tips that we tend to do. But amongst that 5 tips, we try to tell people you have to have some sort of coping or problem solving skills, some skill set that you learn how to handle and manage yourself. So somewhere along the line, we have to do that. Now, people may not want this, but studies done in Trinidad with parents who pray with their children, you found that the ones who pray with their children, those children get less depression and suicidality. So people may move away, but that's a fact. This is studies that were done. So somehow you have to get that element of spirituality there to balance that whole spectrum.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Diao-Singh. And quickly, Ambassador Priska, could you give us a tip on how to remain or be mentally healthy?
Yes. In addition to what Dr. Varma said, one thing I would say is maintain a positive attitude, right? There's this my friend. I always say I'm not sure this one is ever gonna have a mental health issue when it comes to like maybe being sad, depression, and all. Like I say there's no dull moment with her. So like maintaining a positive attitude, talk to someone. It may not even be a professional. It could be like a friend or even a stranger, not a stranger, but someone who is not even very close to you. Like, oh, can I talk to you for a moment and all of that? But just talk to someone. Do not bottle it all in, right? Do something that makes you happy. If it's seeing a movie, if it's dancing, even if you don't know how to dance, but you just want to move your body or even just mimic what they're doing on the screen and just do something, And for me, I do painting. I can't even tell you how much paintings I have here that I don't even know what to do with. I just want to give them out because I just paint. When I feel stressed out, sad, all of those things, I just pull out my paints, my board, and I'm just painting. And positive affirmations. Positive affirmations. I'm like, oh, I'm beautiful. I'm smart. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I have the mind of Christ. I am strong. I am better than this. I am this. Just keep telling yourself, oh, dependent. When I was in school, sometimes it was hard. And I keep telling myself, I am smart. I am stronger than this. I have a mind of Christ. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I do all of this and I keep these positive affirmations. And I see myself, I become to feel strong. Some days when I don't feel pretty, oh my God, you're so smart. You're so beautiful. You're so pretty. And I begin to feel pretty and I raise my shoulder. I'm walking high because, oh my God, no one could tell me something else, right? So positive affirmations help. And the breathing techniques, the times when, this happens, maybe when you're stressed out at work, in school, in some situations, maybe in the family or something, and, some of these issues come and you're beginning to panic, you're beginning to have anxiety and all of those things. And then you do like deep breath. So, they have different types. They have different ones. You could just do like deep breathe for like 3 seconds and breathe out, breathe in for like 3 seconds and breathe out. And, just take a deep breath. And this tells your mind like everything will be okay and all that. When you breathe, your mind begins to calm down. When you take a deep breath and breathe out, your mind begins to calm down. And take a walk, see like Mother Nature, look at trees, admire the trees, the flowers. Sometimes I just go out on the streets and I'm like, oh, this is a Mercedes-Benz. Okay, this is Acura. This is Volkswagen. Like just something. It might not be like something so dramatic or something big. It just be the little things. You can't even imagine how these little things help. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you, Ambassador. And lastly, Ambassador Jasmine Jenkins, any last nuggets for us?
Priska, I like to look at Mother Nature because I think I've said it before, but I've had problems with depression myself, especially like during this pandemic, and I never realized, like I've heard it before, but I've never realized how much getting sun helps your mood. Like I've heard before, like humans need sun, we get vitamins. When you go outside, you feel good. But there were times where I was feeling like really low, and all I did was go outside and just sit on the front porch for a little bit and just get a little sunlight. And that improved my mood for the entire day.
Awesome.
And I love that, like, you have a hobby, because that's another thing. Do something small, even if it's not big. Do something small that makes you happy, and just a few times a day, possibly learn something. It doesn't matter what it is, just learn something. Like learn something that you didn't know, because you don't know where that knowledge will come in, and then it'll hit you and like, yeah, I know this. I'm smart. Hold on. And it also keeps your brain active, because once you continue to be active like that, it's just going to keep going, and it's going to keep being positive, and you're going to keep having these thoughts.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Someone just said quickly, this is indeed a powerful and well-informed discussion. So he wants to thank all the panelists for being here, and thinks that this discussion needs to be in all homes and all communities and in all nations. So thank you guys for coming on. And as Kelly and John Campo John said, prayer conquers all. Thank you so much. Tending to my crops and my rabbits usually boosts my mood. Thank you so much. That helps. So back to you, Ambassador Rachel.
Thank you. Well, we have heard it from these amazing panelists. We thank you for engaging in today's intriguing discussion about making sure that youth feel comfortable to speak about their mental health and having a safe platform to express their feelings. Ambassador Jasmine, Ambassador Mwai, Ambassador Friska, and Dr. Verma, we thank you for your work and for engaging in this progressive dialogue. I believe our viewing audience was empowered and more informed on the challenges and stigma attached to mental health and the challenges experienced by youth. We thank you for your contribution to breaking the stigma and cultivating a culture of education, awareness, and change on this important issue. Dale?
Thank you, Ambassador. And to our guest on today's show, we can't thank you enough again for your commitment to defending the present while focusing on the future, especially with our youths. It was indeed an informative and progressive conversation. And I think the dog in the background agrees also. So we'll be right back after this short commercial.
Did you know that 1 in 3 youth have suffered with mental health issues like depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and suicidal ideation during this global pandemic? Dedicated to our mission of global youth impact and empowerment, Future Focus Empowerment Institute International has partnered with our friends at Healthy Kinder International LLC to serve our global community. They offer USA Youth Mental Health First Aid Certification along with many more services. As a global community, it is extremely important that we are informed on the warning signs and learn the tools necessary to assist some of the most vulnerable among us. For more information, visit www.healthykinder.org. Let us break the silence. Let us break the stigma.
Thank you. And once again, we wish to acknowledge our sponsors, Rightel Incorporated, Treats by PYT, Healthy Kinder International LLC, Global Food Warrior, Youth Amplified Program, Business Aesthetics, Women of Substance, Caribbean Craze, and Rapture Streetwear. We thank you for your support.
Thank you again, Rachel. We also extend a warm thank you to the management and staff at Future Focus Empowerment Institute International for all their hard work, dedication towards the success of the show. To our listening and viewing audience on all our social media platforms, we say thank you for tuning in. This brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to register and tune in to next week's episode of Future Focus Fridays as we engage in thought-provoking conversations, and we continue our segment in the month of July with youths. For more questions and anyone who feels interested in being a sponsor and advertising on the show, you can email us at info@futurefocusemi.org or call us at 347-299-6652 for more information. Please note, Future Focus Empowerment Institute International is a registered 501c3 tax-exempt NGO and all monetary donations are tax deductible. Once again, thank you for joining us and see you next week. Goodbye.